Our screens right now are visuals of the delegation level talks that were led by Prime Minister Modi and President Zelenskiy. Exchange of documents. Documents were exchanged between the two sides. A total of 4 documents were signed between the two sides today. After the delegation level talks, they are the agreement between the government of India and the government of Ukraine on cooperation in the field of agriculture and food industry. The other was a MoU between Central Drugs Standard Control Organization of the Ministry of Health of India and between the State Service of Ukraine on medicines and drugs control, on cooperation in the field of medical products regulation, so basically on drugs. Then there was a MoU between the two sides regarding Indian humanitarian grant assistance for implementation of the high impact community development projects in Ukraine. And then the fourth was it was between the culture ministries of the two on cooperation on the areas of culture for the years 2024 to 2028. So these 4 documents that were signed, essentially looking at expanding mutually beneficial relations. These are, of course, these documents were signed after the delegation level talks led by the two principals, in which, of course, External Affairs Minister, the National Security Advisor and the Foreign Secretary were present from the Indian side along with other officials. And President Zelenskiy had his delegation, including ministers from his delegation. So these MoUs expand the mutually beneficial cooperation in fields of agriculture and food industry by promoting ties in the areas of information exchange, joint scientific research, exchange of experience, cooperation in agriculture research, creation of joint working groups. The other MoU envisages cooperation on medical products, including regulation, improvement of safety and quality aspects, mainly through information exchange, capacity building, workshops, training and exchanges of visits. The other MoU creates a framework for India to provide grant assistance for community development projects in Ukraine. The projects under this will be undertaken in partnership between the governments of Ukraine and India for the people of Ukraine. And the fourth document aims to strengthen cultural cooperation between India and Ukraine, including the promotion of cultural exchanges and cooperations in the fields of theatre, music, fine arts, literature, library and museum affairs, as well as protection and promotion of tangible and intangible cultural heritage. So post-bilateral talks, India and Ukraine also held delegation-level talks of the visuals that we are beaming to you on your screens right now. These talks took place a little while back. In fact, the meeting between Prime Minister and the President Zelenskiy is still on, as the External Affairs Minister was saying. Both leaders held a one-on-one meeting where they held discussions on several issues. Ukraine, as I was telling you, that 4 documents or MoUs or agreements in the field of agriculture and food industry, cooperation in the field of medical product regulation, Indian humanitarian grant assistance for high-impact community development projects in Ukraine by Indian funding, and cooperation in the field of culture were signed. And let me go back to my colleague Jessica Taneja, who joins us for more on that story from our Delhi newsroom. Jessica, so now we know that 4 agreements were signed, delegation level talks were held. The External Affairs Minister just concluded a press conference. What would you say was achieved during this short but impact-oriented visit of Prime Minister Modi to Kiev?
Well, you heard the press statement from External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar say a short while ago that a lot of focus was on the current conflict that has gripped the entire continent for the time being, and with that, of course, it was understood that there was going to be a possibility of facilitating a conflict resolution when it comes to a situation like this, and India would want to play a significant role, if not as a mediator, but definitely as an important player that could help bring about peace in the region. Given that particular aspect in mind, of course, the bilateral exchanges, as you pointed out, the 4 crucial MoUs signed between the 2 countries, and high impact community development projects was on the agenda, and something that was expected as well, on the expected lines as well, but particularly post-war construction efforts, that is what India wanted to also emphasize on when it comes to this particular visit, because of the various kinds of help that India has given in the past. You'd recall the External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar also pointed out that so far 17 consignments have been sent from the Indian side, which includes medicines as well as other essential supplies like tents, and that is further being wrapped up. So of course India has provided resistance time and again, but also focusing on the key aspects of how it sees this particular conflict to end in the near future.
Okay, the External Affairs Minister said that the principals are tasked the 2 ministers, that's Minister Jaishankar and Minister Koleba, to revive the Intergovernmental Commission, and he said that we could probably have a meeting by the end of this year. Give us a sense of how the Commission, what would the Commission try and achieve?
Well, at this point, of course, there's a lot to achieve between the 2, resumption of trade from where it had been impacted pre-pandemic times, and then, of course, post-pandemic and after the conflict, it nearly took a hit to an effect that where this would be important in terms of even when the post-war construction efforts are beginning to take place, as and when hopefully a resolution to this conflict is found, India would be a key player, and in that aspect, of course, those consultations will be important, and not just focusing on this particular part of the relationship. Beyond that as well, India has shown that it, and in the past as well, and as it moves into the future with its idea of multipolarity and engaging in various multilateral institutions, it would want to continue to diversify its trade ties and not restrict it to various partners.
Okay, also Jessica, give us a sense of, when it came down to, we know what Prime Minister told President Putin when he was visiting Moscow on the conflict. What exactly did Prime Minister Modi tell President Zelensky on his views on the conflict, and was ways to discuss, ways to end it discussed between the 2 sides?
Well, India stands, as you've heard the Prime Minister, at various multilateral forums in the past as well, beginning with the fact that this is not an era of war, when he was seated right next to Vladimir Putin, and that made quite a statement in the past, and from there onwards, India has made it a point that it does not want to be in a position where it has to take certain sides, and it would want a peaceful resolution of this conflict, be it when the 2 sides are together when it comes to a possible peace plan. Well, India is not presenting a peace plan of its own, but it would definitely support one if that brings both the sides on the same, bring both of them on the same side of the table, and perhaps that is where the conversation begins. But from the current situation that we see right now in the war theatre, it doesn't seem to be that this particular resolution would be found anytime soon, with the Ukrainian side now claiming territory in the Kursk region, and the Russian occupation continues in eastern Ukraine. This particular battle rages, but it's a matter of time where a lot of countries in the West, as you see, have exhausted their patience for this entire war theatre. You've seen that how the supplies have been marginally cut by countries like Germany, and of course other countries and other European countries also mulling over how this needs to be de-escalated, and rather than making it an opportunity for further exploitation, where this could of course hampered the security, the larger security architecture of the region.
Okay, Jessica, finally, a lot was being expected from this short but a very power-packed visit of Prime Minister Modi, because he had enough on his plate. Would you say that the mission of of peace that he took to Ukraine, in your analysis, would have some impact on the way both sides look at the conflict? Because as I understand, Russia hasn't reacted yet to Prime Minister Modi's visit to Kiev.
Right, and we haven't heard as to what the reaction from the Russian side so far is, but when it comes to the kind of messaging that India has given, it has, of course, made it a point that it doesn't, create any moments which cause sort of a stir in its diplomatic relationships. And of course, it will be careful in a sense where to be able to balance its ties. But so far, the Russian side has maintained silence on it, but we can expect something later in the day as when the Prime Minister departs. But so far, it seems that nothing morbid has come from the Russian side. But at this point, while the world watches where this visit was crucial, it came 6 weeks after he visited Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. Although this visit is not in continuance of that, it is India's independent policy thinking and policy framework as to how it approaches its bilateral relationships with various countries, despite the geopolitical climate that surrounds the world right now.
All right, it will be interesting to see how Russia reacts to it, because given the sharp reaction that came from President Zelensky when Prime Minister Modi was in Moscow, and also from the West. We leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much, Jessica Taneja.